Good evening from the Gulag. Still in the Gulag. Um, just getting everything set here. As you know, I'm such a high tech person that it's really easy for me to do this stuff. Uh, yeah. Okay. So let's hope this works, man. All right. So, Adikap Tukon. It's Sunday night here in the U.S. and and yeah, Monday in Asia. So good day, everyone. Whatever day it is, it's all an illusion. It's just now. Let me. What time is it now? And then where do you check later? I don't know. Check in a half hour, see what time it is. It's now. I mean, the clock changes. That's what I was noticing a lot lately. Is that the clock keeps changing, the calendar keeps changing, my body keeps changing, but it's always now. So how do you put that together? Um, anyway, so we got everybody coming on, right? Oh, we're having trouble starting my video. That's because, oh my God. Sorry, everyone. Here we go. All right, finally. My gosh. All right. So as usual, I had a little bit of trouble, but I apologize. And so Instagram was because this device wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi. Anyway, okay, from Greece, right on. Louisiana, Greece. Everyone's coming on. Beautiful. Glad you're all here. Even Aika. All right, cool. I wanted to tell you all something. Okay, good morning from, must be Asia. You guys are from Asia. Beautiful. So, okay, so it's Monday morning in Asia, Sunday night here, even later in Europe. And so, again, our conclusion is what? Our conclusion that is time, is that clocks and calendars are only relevant for what? I don't know, keeping this whole thing going, right? Because it's always right now. I mean, it doesn't matter how you look at it. You can whatever you can say, it's now. So the point about these calendars and clocks is that they keep this whole structure, this infrastructure and extra structure and all of the structures going of this grand illusion. So I'm not sure how, and I've always had trouble with clocks and calendars. I just don't, I have trouble with them. And so anyway, I have a few things I wanted to say before we get started. I didn't mean to go off on that rant, but where is my, there we go. Okay, cool. So what I want to say before we all get started here is that, I apologize. Must be a bummer watching me because I'm always like all over the place. Anyway, let's go to here. Okay, so yeah. So first of all, I got to give you the reminders, right? And so here's the reminders. So I'm going to be talking at the Beljanski Integrative Cancer Conference in Jacksonville in about 2 weeks now. I haven't yet put it together what I'm going to talk. I mean, I know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about parasites, but they only give us 27 minutes. So each person has 27 minutes to talk. So I don't know what you can say in 27 minutes, but I'm not sure of the purpose of that whole conference. But anyway, let's do our best. But anyway, that's October 13th to the 15th. I'm speaking on the 15th at 2:30 p.m. And but just to let you know, also, lots of many people have been asking where my calendar is, right, for consultations. And right now it's kind of suspended. By the way, it's not October of 2024. A few people have told me that. That's not it. It's gonna start up again soon. But remember something. Oasis of Healing, the clinic that my clinic that I started in about 19 years ago, is alive and well, and I'm here now. And so anybody, you can get consultations through there always. And Oasis of Healing, we're in Arizona. And also, if you've got chronically fermenting cells, then that's the place to go, because it's doing everything possible that can be done, and the result is beautiful. So just beautiful. So anyway, but that's it. But for other ones, now I wanted to talk about something for a moment. There's been a lot of inquiry regarding parasites, and I understand. I didn't know that. I didn't realize there would be such a, um, so many people wanting to get some guidance on that. But now I don't know why I didn't know that. Of course, because the world is filled with parasites. There are, and we talked about this before. There are, well, in the known universe, right, and or the studied universe, with its trillions and trillions of stars, there's about that many microorganisms on this planet. I think they say it's something. It's a number I'd never heard of before. It's no, I can't remember what it is, but it's 10 to the 30th power with 30 zeros after it. But of course, that's only the known universe. Remember, we don't know all of the universe, so definitely there are more stars out there. But but anyway, so we are filled with microorganisms are all over, and a lot of them are parasites. In other words, they live in and on us, and they live in and on many mammals, reptiles, fish, frogs, amphibians. They live in insects. They live all over the place. Okay, so that's what these are. In fact, and I mentioned this before, there's only one spot on Earth. In Ethiopia, there's a spring that has extremely high salt content, sulfur, and sulfuric acid, and yeah, and it's boiling or hot. So there's no life there. So high contents of sulfur and salt. And no life, but it's the only place. Other than that, it goes, the microbial life goes up to 77 kilometers above in the atmosphere, and 2 kilometers down in the oceans. Yeah, so they're everywhere. In fact, they move and they morph and they change, and they recycle calcium, they recycle sulfur, oxygen, um, carbon. I mean, they're just everything. They're how we get amino acids. Without them, there's no amino acids, which means there's no life. So they are the context in which we macro organisms have our life and have our existence. So that's it. Yeah. So anyway, we've got to stop looking at them as germs or like these nasty, ugly things that are. You're going to wash your hands and make sure you don't have any germs on you. Well, if you didn't have any germs, and germs is a pejorative term, we've got to change it. It's like calling the earth dirt. It's not dirt, it's earth. Okay. And it's not, these are not germs, they're microorganisms that allow existence to macroorganisms. So, however, yes, we get what we call a parasite is an organism that is living in another organism or on another organism. And it is deriving benefit, but the host organism is being damaged, right? And then, as you know, commensal are where you both neither host nor the other are harmed, and they're both okay, doing okay. And so Anyway, there's a lot of them like that. Now, our immune systems, our health, our balance, the integrity of our physical being would normally keep all of that stuff at bay. In other words, in spite of the fact that you're being exposed to all sorts of organisms, your body would not. Your immune system and other barriers like skin and the acid in your stomach and all the other barriers that we naturally have would naturally keep you um, from having any problem with them. Okay, so but the problem is as you all know quite well, we live in a world now that is highly, highly toxic, highly, highly, highly toxic. I mean, extremely toxic. If you start to look at how toxic we are, you're gonna wonder why. You're gonna understand why when you look around, you see so many people sick and overweight and you know and crazy. We're getting crazy, and it's toxic not by natural processes. We know that. We know that the toxicity of planet Earth is due to uh, it's on purpose. It's being done on purpose. And we all know that. Well, we should know that. If you don't know that by now, it's wake up, wake up. Okay, it's not cool out there. Okay, the guys running all this are not okay. All right, um, and but they're not like don't care about us. so so anyway, we've got things being dropped on us. It's in the food. It's everywhere like that. So it's decreasing our ability to deal with these imbalances. Okay, because remember, a balanced system won't be affected. Okay, but you can't be balanced when you're extremely toxic. Because if you can think of the immune system as having two broad functions, it's the Department of Defense, yes, and it's also the Department of Maintenance. And if it's too busy with maintenance requirements, cleaning up, garbage and stuff like that, it doesn't have the resources for defense. Period. It's very simple. So that's why we do what they call detox, which that's why we help our body detoxify. Because remember, detoxification is not something you do. It's something that happens when you stop toxifying yourself. So when you stop eating, um, your body cleans itself. As long as you're eating all day, your body's not cleaning itself because it's assimilating, digesting the food, and putting it where it needs to go. And I mean, it's doing some cleansing, but not maximal. So that's one of the reasons that God puts us to sleep every night is that so we finally stop eating, because uh, yeah, one of the only ways you can get us to stop eating, put us to sleep, or knock us down sick. Otherwise, we're too busy tasting, smelling, tasting, chewing, and swallowing. 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 What? And by the way, do you ever get satisfied with it? Never. You get full, you can't eat, you wait till you're not full, and then you do it again. So anyway, so that was one of the things I want to say. And remember that if you have chronically fermenting cells, or uh, and always is feeling, um, remember that's everything I say and do that is there. So everyone's been trained there by me, and I'm in constant touch with them all, and every person that comes through there, who's um, getting care there, um, I'm involved with that. So um, whether I'm there or not. So right now I happen to be here and I'm there every day. And it's probably 2, 3 times a year like that. But the other times when I'm not directly there, I'm, in Asia, and I'm still doing these. I have Zoom calls with the doctors and some of the I don't like to call it patients. I'd rather call them students that are there. And yeah, so we're still in touch. It's all the same thing. It's just whether or not I'm present in physical or in the cyber world. Yeah. Okay. Now the other thing is, remember, Facebook still won't let us back on, and so we're sending letters to everybody, but they won't let us back on. So I mean, okay, okay. Um, remember, face is not the only four-letter word that begins with an F. So when we give it the initials of FB, we got to understand. Yeah, I agree. The second word is book. Okay. The first word, I'm not so sure. I don't think it's necessarily face. Anyway, I was reading recently that how it all started. Did you realize that was probably most likely started by who? I mean, we're not talking about the whatever he is. I'm not sure if he's a clone now or what. What is he? What is he? That pale white, weird looking, almost human thing. We see him testifying here and there. He is said to have started that thing, but actually we found out that it was really said. I have to be real careful until I finally get my Rumble show where I can talk and say what I want to say instead of like talking around stuff. I hate it. But anyway, I don't want to get knocked off anything. You know, it's really bizarre. I get things sent to me that from TikTok that like are way more precise. Naming people, doing things like that, and against the story that the world is putting out, and they're on, and I get kicked off for saying things that don't even matter. I mean, things that don't even matter. Just clarifying words. I just clarifying terms. What does this when we say this word? What do we really mean? And then they kick me up. And of course, YouTube is, you know. So anyway, so Twitter or X, however you want to call it, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and they're all at Dr. Thomas Lodi, Dr. Thomas Lodi. Except for Twitter X, it's at Dr. Thomas Lodi, MD. And then, of course, you can go to the website and you can go at drlodi.com/live. Yeah. All right. And then I've also seen questions on there where people are asking about the replays. They're all automatic. They'll all be available for watching again. And it's automatic on all the platforms except TikTok. They don't have that. And then also, we put them into the podcast, so they're also available on the podcast. So that's at drlodi.com/podcast. All right, so that's kind of the news. But I just want to remind you, if you've got chronically fermenting, okay. So for everybody or anybody who may be new, just to keep you in mind. There's something called linguistic manipulation. This is very important. So I'm going to preface everything today. There's something called linguistic manipulation, and that is you use words to manipulate people's minds and therefore their whole being, right? Because the mind is reflected in our physiology very easily through, there are mechanisms, right? The mind is like, what we're not sure, you can't really say what the mind is. Is it substance or what? But whatever. But it has its relationship to the body through the electromagnetic aspects of the brain. Okay, so the brain, right at the bottom of the brain is a structure called the hypothalamus, which sits right below the thalamus and right above the pituitary. And then so the hypothalamus is picking up signals from the blood, sends messages to the pituitary. The pituitary then sends messages to the thyroid, to the ovaries, to the testes, to the adrenals. So anyway, so that's kind of one of the ways in which the mind affects the body directly. Fear. When you're afraid, immediately that whole system is called hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis goes down to the adrenal glands, start producing epinephrine and cortisol, right? That's just a response. That's just to show you that. And then there are more longer term ones like I know, and we talked about this before, but I just want you to understand that for example, one really unfortunately, all too often, a couple are trying to get pregnant. They can't get pregnant. They try for, whatever, 5 years, 6 years, and they finally adopt a child, and 2 months later she's pregnant, and I've seen that happen many times. All right, and so anyway, there's a direct effect. So linguistic manipulation is using words to uh, in a populate, either using it in a personal situation like you're talking to someone, or using it in a broader sense to, if you're trying to manipulate whole populations, you can throw words in there, throw words to be used, and once those words start getting used, they become reality, because words are kind of the scaffolding of our mind. They're how the mind presents itself, right? And I've watched people, from all over the world who speak their language, whatever their language is, um, and then they learn to speak they speak English, for example, which I can understand most of the time. And what's very interesting is they think differently, because English, the language you use is a way of thinking, is what it is. And I've even watched the expression on the face of a person talking, for example, English and then Japanese, talking Japanese to someone and then talking English. They're completely different expressions. And that's reflective of a completely different mind, completely different mindset concepts. Yeah. So anyway, that's language. So when we use words, we got to be very careful. And one of the I'm gonna well, I'd like, we all know what happened about 120 years ago was there was a big um, purposeful effort to take over the medical world, and it was successful. They did it, and they took over the medical world. And anyway, those same people that took over the medical world um, um, promoted the word called cancer, and the word called cancer. When people hear it, it's as if somebody stole your future. It's as if all of your agendas and uh, uh, to-do lists become irrelevant, and nothing else is important. That's how successful they've been at that. So we call that situation going on in people, which is not anything like what they say it is. According to the Rockefellers, it's a death sentence. And when we hear the word, we think that. So that's not what it is anyway. It's not a death sentence, whatever. It's not at all. And I'm not just saying that. Listen, I don't just say things. Why would I just say things? I mean, whatever that means. How do you just say something? Anyway, you say something, it's either true or not true. This is true. Why would I say something? So why would I say it's not true? This is the field I work in. I've been working at it for several decades. So, you know, I have no reason to not. But I've seen with my eyes, and people that I've worked with that work with me have seen with their eyes, what might be called miracles. Well, it's not miracles. It's just what happens when you get everything back in balance. That's the result. The consequence is a condition called health. And where there is health, there's not only no chronically fermenting cells, there's no, arthritis, gastritis, depression, none of that. Okay, it's just about being in balance. And we've been knocked out of balance we've been punched inside, outside. We're breathing it in. We're hearing it, and all that. Anyway, so we don't refer to the condition that people get as anything but other than what it is the chronically fermenting cell. Oh, why do you say that? Well, I say that because if you knock out all of the mitochondria, which are the little organelles in the cell that produce energy, the cell still has to survive, because it's called homeostasis. It's got to survive, and so to survive, it has to ferment. And fermentation is the only other way of producing energy, and it's a very primitive way, very simple way, but it's very ineffective. However, it's quick, which is why these cells do it. They do it because they can, within the same amount of time, they can get a lot more energy produced, but they've burned a lot more fuel. Okay, and so that's it. So the whole thing that these cells now have to do is turn on this and turn off this and and readjust themselves so they can now get more fuel in and be more efficient at it. And so now it's able to be chronic. So it's a chronically fermenting cell, period, nothing else. And if it starts in your elbow, okay, depending on what cell, If it starts, here, or it starts on the bone, it'll be called different things. If it starts here, okay, so it doesn't matter where it starts in terms of its biology. Its biology is the same. Okay. But because of the organ and what that organ does, it's got different kinds of characteristics only in regards to the organ and its drainage system, things like that. And most of all, remember, it's happening because there is an overall assault on all the cells of the body, and the weakest part of the cells inside the weakest part of a cell are the mitochondria, because they have oxygen. Okay, and oxygen produces what are called reactive oxygen species, or also known as free radicals. Okay, and they're all over the place, and so they get knocked out easily. That's it. It's really not. I mean, it's extremely complicated, but the general concept is not. But don't use their words. Don't use their words. Their words are nasty, ugly, and they want to harm. They want to harm. Okay? There's no such thing called as a diagnosis. It means nothing. A diagnosis. Gnosis. Gnosis. Okay? You've heard of the Gnostics? Okay. It means to know. It means knowing. Gnostic. Okay? Dia is you separate. So how do you separate and know? You got a bunch of stuff on your desk. How do you separate and know? You give it a name. Oh, bottle. Glasses. Okay. So now that I've given it a name, it exists separately, because a baby is not going to see that. A pre-verbal, a 1-year-old is not going to see that. They won't see the detail you see. They can't. They don't have a concept for it. And the concept is given a name. So a name gives reality. Very important. Back to linguistic manipulation, right? But a name gives reality. So when you name something, you give it there. And so does images. Remember, the mind is made up of words and pictures. That's what it is. So those are the tools. And both words and pictures are symbols. They're not the real deal, right? So the picture of a bird and the word bird is not a bird. They're symbols. Anyway, so that's what the mind is. And that's where we live, unfortunately, all 99.999999999% of the time. Probably the only time we don't, unless you work at it, which is something called immunology or meditation, is only about the 20 to 30 minutes we have every night if we get into delta deep sleep and we reconnect. And that's why we're refreshed in the morning. We need that. All the other stuff's important, but not as important as reconnecting with God. And that's what happens. Delta sleep. So CFCs from now on, okay? Everybody cool? We're going to call it CFCs. We do that every week. We do that all the time. CFCs. Okay. Get that other word and throw it away. And remember, what is between Gemini and Leo? That's right. That's what it is. It's an astrological zodiac sign, okay? It's not anything else. Do you think you can get an astrological sign in your body? Hey, I've got some Aquarius over here. Pisces, Capricorn. No, it doesn't work that way. So don't let the Rockefellers play their game with each other and their other friends, okay? Like, what's his name? The Slav? Something the Slav. Klaus the Slav. Yeah, I can't remember his name. But something, I don't remember his name completely. But anyway. So let's answer some questions. All right. So I'm going to look at some website questions here. Okay, you guys. Lisa, I'm in the middle of chemo treatments for breast CFCs. I stopped the treatments and want to kill stem cells naturally. What is the most important next step to take? All right, well, so when you say you're in the middle of chemo treatments, I'm assuming you meant maximum tolerated, the kind you get in the hospital from the witches and warlocks. I'm sorry, I said hospital. They're called the House of Horrors. So what you get in the House of Horrors from the witches and warlocks is usually what they call maximum tolerated chemotherapy, and it's really effective at killing mature CFCs, right? But it has no effect on CFC stem cells. So you're absolutely right in that regard. So if you've stopped that, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Now, you said you wanted to kill the CFC stem cells naturally, and well, you you can greatly decrease their abilities to do anything by 100% changing your the biochemistry in your body, 100%. And that has to do with juice cleansing to clean out the interstitial fluid in your body for a period of time, doing colon hydrotherapy, lymphatic therapy, by a certified lymphatic therapist. By the way, I'm going to have on the podcast. I'm going to start having some people on so I can ask. I want to share my discussions with them. So you may all have seen Dr. Donato, um, um, whose grandfather discovered, invented, developed IPT. Well, we're going to have a second one. I think it's October 9th. And I'm going to do a few series, but I'm also going to do one with our lymphatic therapist at Oasis, at an Oasis of Healing, which I was just talking about, which is our center in Arizona. Because I want you guys all to understand how important lymphatic therapy is. Okay, so naturally, what can you do with lymphatic therapy? You can do, I don't know if you know what a rebounder is, but basically it's like a mini trampoline that you're not jumping, but you're just moving up to your toes and down. So when you're doing that, you're kind of every time you go down, it pulls the lymph down. Very important. Another way you can really move your lymph along is to movement, exercise. I mean, not exercise, but let's call it play, movement. Because remember, it's only through muscle contraction that lymphatics get their motion. Well, two things: lymphatic contraction and breathing, deep breathing, will get lymphatics moving. Okay, and lymphatics are what? They are the circulatory system for your immune system. So kind of important, kind of important. The circulatory highway for the immune system. And all of the little lymph nodes in there are the intelligent headquarters. This is where all the decisions are made. So tell me, does it make sense to go in there when these witches and warlocks go into people's bodies and remove? Well, we removed 27 lymph nodes and 4 were positive. Well, congratulations, Herr Warlock. That's very good. Did you do anything else? Did you, take half the liver and give it to your dog? Come on. Yeah. So I know these guys are mad. Yes, CFCs go to the lymph nodes. So does everything else. You got an infection. In your throat. You're gonna get some lymph nodes. You're gonna take them out. Your lymph node. What are you gonna do? Take them out? You got an infection over here, and your lymph nodes gets big. Take them out. Get rid of them. But if it was just madness and kind of laughable, it'd be okay. But except that it's deadly. It's I can't use that word, right? TikTok knocked me off one time. Anyway, when you dismember another individual, it's dismembering. It's madness. Of course, it's going to go there. Why is it there? What's the lymph node doing? It's evaluating whether it's a CFC, whether it's a bacteria, whether it's a whatever parasite, and it's developing an immune response. Yeah, that's what's happening. So it's not like a bad thing. You understand that? Okay, so. So naturally, those are things you do. You eat healthy. You go to bed early. You do your meditation 5 times a day for 2 minutes. 5 times a day for 2 minutes. 5 times a day for 2 minutes. And when you wake up, and when you go to sleep, if you want, but at least 5 times a day for 2 minutes. You can do 2 minutes. Anybody can do 2 minutes. All right. And you're also going to do about every 90 minutes at most. You're going to get up and just move around. Do jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, get on your stationary bike or a real bike and go riding, and spend 12 minutes just getting out of breath and moving every part of your body and all that, then go back and do whatever you're doing. So you're going to do that every 90 minutes or so throughout the day. And 5 times a day for 2 minutes, you're going to meditate, which means you're going to learn to turn off the mind. That's all you're doing. You're turning it off. You're not praying to Buddha. You're not praying to Krishna. You're not doing any of that thing. Some people mistakenly think that that's what meditation is. You're praying to some god or something. No, you're not doing anything. And in fact, if you do pray, and it's whoever it is, whoever you're praying to, have the courtesy to sit back and listen for the answer before you get up and walk away. And that's what meditation is. It's listening for the answer. Okay? Listen with all of your heart and soul and ears and brain and everything. Listen and don't talk. And what'll happen, guess what'll happen? Well, there's a field of study now called psychoneuroimmunology. What happens is your immune system goes through the roof. But anyway, so in terms of lymphatics, so you're going to do all these things, but really, for the stem cells, it's not going to be natural. You got to use some substances, and ivermectin is one. Doxycycline, which is an antibiotic, is another one. Curcumin, which comes from turmeric, is one. That's natural, I guess. And, vitamin C is another one, and quercetin is one, and mebendazole, which is one of the benzimidazoles, is one. So right there. So if you're doing, 3 of those, ivermectin, vitamin C, and curcumin, you're doing it. Okay, but it's not. Remember, question the way you asked that. The question you're saying to me, you stopped doing a military approach, which was the high dose chemo, and now you want to kill the stem cells. Let's change our whole paradigm. Let's look at it differently. What we want to do is restore health. We want to get back to health. Health is our goal. Our goal is not to get rid of anything; is to restore health. And where there's health, there's no other problems going on. So, and we're going to take some substances orally that we need to in order to eliminate the stem cells, right, of the CFC stem cells. But again, we're restoring health. So we're not going from one thing to another thing in terms of getting rid of this or getting rid of that. We are restoring health. We got to get on the healing paradigm, okay? Because really, I'm going to give you an example you'll understand why it is that I'm talking about. We don't want to get rid of a condition. We want to restore health. Why? I had a student who was with us many years ago who had colon CFCs. And was with us at least 3 months, 4 months. And then finally, they were all gone. All the CFCs were gone. The scans were clean. The PET scan was clean. But he had, prior to coming, of course, had several heart attacks, myocardial infarctions. And as a result, had what they call New York heart classification 4. Heart failure, meaning his heart was so ineffective that he couldn't walk to the bathroom. He had to be taken to the bathroom. He couldn't stand up. He had no breath. So you see, for this fellow, it didn't matter that the CFCs were gone. He had no life anyway. Okay, so the journey is, so you not only don't have CFCs, you don't have heart problems, you don't have arthritis, you don't have depression, you don't have all that stuff, okay? The journey is health. And health is what? The consequence of what? There's only one way to get healthy. There's only one way to get health. Health is obtained only one way. I said that 3 different ways. Okay, so what is that? Healthy living. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's it? Yeah. Can't buy it, can't negotiate it, can't coerce it, can't force it, can't steal it. You have to earn it. It's sort of like respect. You got to earn it. So, and you earn it by living healthy. It's really simple. The problem is we don't know how to live healthy because we grew up in our individual cultures, and there is no culture that's really healthy. The healthiest cultures that I've seen is probably Japan during the Edo period. I mean, and look at just the leftover from that now. So, the Japanese are still living 10 years longer than everyone else. And even though now they've embraced our, uh, our the West's insane way of life, like eating stuff that is not food but selling as food, right? 800 billion sold. Oh, all right. That must mean it's great, right? No. Anyway. Um, okay, so that's that. Now, here's Helen. What would you prescribe? Huh? What would you prescribe to someone who has and possibly has had for years a parasite infection called onchocerciasis? Right. It has been found in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona in humans so far. I have read that doxycycline taken for 6 weeks and ivermectin for 1 year, for one or several years. What are your thoughts? Okay, well, that's I'm you know I'm glad you brought that up because there's a lot of interesting issues in that now. So, but what I didn't realize, and thank you for telling me, is that it was in America because we always think of it as being mostly African. Like 99% of it is in Africa. There's a couple countries, like I think it was Brazil and Venezuela in South America, and then in Latin America, a couple countries, and then Yemen and a couple other. Anyway, what it is it's called Uncle Circa volvulus is the name of the organism. It's a filarial worm. So um, when the worm lays eggs, and then the eggs become these little filaria. They look like little, you know, snaky things, and they travel around, they migrate around the body, and they lodge themselves into the subcutaneous tissues. And there's a lot of different, they all come from a class called flatworms, platyhelminthes, and then they're also called I forget the term, but anyway, they're basically worms, and they're small ones, and they're called flukes. Yeah, and that, like for example, the fluke that gets into the liver and causes cholangiocarcinoma, which is gallbladder, not gallbladder, but biliary CFCs. Very, very terrible situation. Comes from a flatworm, a fluke that's in the fish. So flatworm, all these kinds of things, and this one here causes blindness. So does there's another parasite that causes blindness too, um, and it's called Loa Loa. It's down there again in those things. But I didn't realize this was happening in the U.S. But I shouldn't be surprised because we now know that a lot of the parasites that we thought were unique to, like, the Amazon River and things like that, we're finding them in Lake Michigan. We're finding them in the Mississippi River, right? Because of people are all over the place now. Yeah. So, but the onchocerciasis is pretty big deal. I mean, uh, there's like at least 220 million people being infected. So it's pretty big, and it causes blindness. It causes many things. It causes these problems on the skin, but it also causes blindness. And yeah, and so the treatment since 2015, when it won the Nobel Prize, has been before that they had these other ineffective treatments. Has been ivermectin, and ivermectin works really good, but not completely. So what has been found, and you're very right, Helen. What has been found is that doxycycline, which I mentioned before about stem cells, right? CFC stem cells. Doxycycline is, and it's an antibiotic that's used, like for acne and other things. But it's really good at getting intracellular bacteria. So it does a lot of amazing things. I mean, doxycycline, we also use it because it reverses bone metastasis, and you can get that from either breast or prostate. You can get it from other CFCs, but both those are the ones that kind of drain there. They go there a lot. So bone and bone. But anyway, so doxycycline can prevent and eliminate bone metastases. Okay, so but anyway, what's really interesting is that there are um, there is uh, a bacteria. You know, some bacteria are not like, you know, they don't form like an abscess, you know, where you get stuff like that. But they live inside of cells. They're called intracellular bacteria. And for example, syphilis is one, Lyme's is one. But they have the little corkscrew structures, so they're called spirochetes. But they live inside the cell. That's where they cause problems. And you know, there's other ones too. But there's another one that's not so well known by the public, but it's called Wolbachia. And Wolbachia is probably, I mean, it's been considered to be um, perhaps the most common parasitic microbe. You know, um, and probably the most common. All right. um, and it's been said that it's the most common reproductive parasite in the biosphere. That's pretty big. So anyway, so I think in up to 60-70% of insects, Wolbachia lives, and they need it to survive. And when you get rid of it, if you were to get rid of that bacteria, they would die, and they become you know, like the females become sterile and things like that. Well, as it turns out, um, not only insects, but some of the nematodes. And a nematode is a roundworm. And it's really weird. It's really weird. They call it a roundworm, but anyway, the roundworm can be flat. It's a flat roundworm, and they call it they call it a trematode. It's just a name. And then they call it flukes, like we said, and the fluke is the one that causes onchocerciasis. Anyway, I mean, the filaria causes the onchocerciasis. So anyway, what they found is that the doxycycline, actually, if you take the doxycycline, you actually kill. It shows the filaria have these endobacteria inside of them that they depend on to live. And if you kill them all, then it can't survive because you've killed its food source, its energy source. So it's living. So the filaria that produces this condition called onchocerciasis requires this bacteria. So the doxycycline kills that. So if you use the 1-2 punch with what you were talking about, and those are right, that's exactly right. You could take the doxycycline for 6 months and then start on the ivermectin. Yeah. And how long do you take that? You take that, up to 12, 15 years. I don't know for that, but that's how long the World Health Organization recommends taking it, the ivermectin. But don't take it for anything else. No. You know what I'm talking. Everyone, you guys all know what I am in reference to, right? Yeah, you know what I'm referring to. I can't say it because we live in what? Oh, that's right, a free country. It's not only a free country; it's a free world. Remember what I said about linguistic manipulation? There you go. Yeah, you're free to follow the orders. Okay. So anyway, so the doxycycline, they were giving 100 milligrams daily. I like to give it twice a day because there are other things going on. It gets rid of a lot of things. It's really important, and especially if you have CFCs. And then you can do the ivermectin 12 milligrams 3 times a day for a long time. Let's say, I don't know, a year, and then if you really think you have onchocerciasis, and then maybe go down to 12 milligrams twice a day, and then once a day. Yeah, just so you keep doing it. And remember, if you have any CFCs anywhere, you're gonna knock out the stem cells as well, right? So it's pretty cool. It's very good, amazing. Good question, and it just shows us that God, if something like onchocerciasis is being found in Texas, Arizona, and what? Where did you say? You said New Mexico. Yeah, I mean, like, that's a big deal. Whoa. That means, there's other stuff here. Okay, so Question by Nicole: do you treat clients on your own, or do you only consult with doctors? No, I mean I work with people. Yes, and I do that in several ways. I do that through my clinic in Arizona, an Oasis of Healing, and then I also do it at online consultations. That's getting harder and harder to do because of when I'm moving around and working here and there. It's getting harder and harder to do. But by the way, the thing for parasites, so people that are having parasites, what we're doing right now is we're working on uh, having a program that, I mean, like a way to only work with parasites. So even people that don't have CFCs or people that do, but this is for the people who don't have CFCs and wouldn't come to us for that. Um, and so we're working on figuring out how we can best do that. And we're going to come up with an answer very soon because I can see there's a big need out there. Yes, you can take ivermectin and doxycycline together. Absolutely. Absolutely. And doxycycline is going to be helpful, again, for some of the protozoals as well. Yeah, so that's an answer to Robert's question. Do we work with the non-CFC people? We want to do a proper parasite cleanse. And again, as you've heard me say, unfortunately, these parasites are called parasites because they successfully avoid being detected and being eliminated and killed. And so they hang out, they hide, they burrow deep into the walls of your organs, and that's where they lay their eggs, and they produce their egg, and their eggs produce filaria, and they go all around the place like that. Oh, by the way, but I didn't say about the onchocerciasis and all the other flukes, what they call flukes, and filaria. They're filaria. Part of their life cycle, is that they require insect vectors, right? Like malaria, but it's not malaria. But they require insect vectors. So what the onchocerciasis is when someone living in the endemic areas gets bitten by a black fly, these special kind of species of black fly, repeatedly, and then the filaria get in there. See, I know your doctor. Robert. It's a real ridiculous bummer that most doctors don't know about this. Although they did take microbiology, they should have. They should have taken parasitology, but unfortunately, they were taught. I mean, if you read the directions, take this drug one time a day for 3 days. All right. So, considering the fact that they lay eggs, these little worms and whatever, lay up anywhere from 20 up to 2,000 eggs a day. Some lay, so. Well, what's going to happen? You take something for 3 days. What's going to happen? Well, in about a week or two, they're going to lay. The eggs are going to hatch. So even if that one pill once a day worked, it's still not going to work. Okay, here. So this is from JC. JC. Are parasites the cause for eczema? And how do we treat children for parasites when stool sample came up negative? All right, well, no. Eczema is usually, from what I surmise after everything that I've studied and been through, now I know it's really from a dysbiosis of the gut. It's by an extreme dysbiosis of the gut, and a less than optimal immune system. And I'll give you an example about that, JC, about eczema, because in children, especially in children, when we look at children living in what we call the ghetto, or just say in neighborhoods that don't have a lot of money, they are not as, they find out that the children don't get eczema, don't get a lot of things. They're just really have a strong immune system. And the reason is they're being exposed all the time to, you know, what we would call unclean situations, right? But it's not. It's more, maybe it's more natural, you know. Do you think it's natural the way we live in the middle class and the upper class, where you spill something on your pants and you wipe it off, and you get up something in your food, you throw it away? What the, you know, we're earthlings, you know. We're earthlings, you know. Without microorganisms, we don't exist. They are as important as our heart. Okay, okay. They are as important as our brain. Why do I say that? Because without them, we don't live. Without our heart, we don't live. Without our brain, we don't live. So get off this thing, everybody. Please get off any kind of idea about germs and e. So, all right. So, and how do you exercise? If you want to get strong muscles, what do? You do resistance training consistently. Okay. You want to have a strong mind. What do? You read a lot, study, and you debate, and yeah. You want to have a strong immune system. What do? You challenge it. You challenge it with what? With organisms, so they can develop a response. And so these children that are living in poorer conditions don't have atopic dermatitis, don't have eczema, don't have all these things. But we see it in the middle class and the upper class. Okay. They're not exposed to anything. They're kept clean all the time. Well, what they call clean. So anyway, so your second part of your question, okay, and I've mentioned this before, so please listen carefully. You have a 99.99% chance of not finding ever a parasite in your body. And you can be highly infected until they start crawling out of your nose or your eyes. Okay? You're not going to find them. They're not hanging out where they can be found. And so when you go to the House of Horrors and they do all their different kinds of things with you, they're not going to find it. And they're going to say, well, don't worry about a thing. You're okay. Oh, do Telegram. Does Telegram have a... So Wendy, I'm just reading your thing there. Do Telegram. You mean get a Telegram channel? And okay, cool. All right. So anyway, so you're not going to find it. You can't get it diagnosed. By the way, I never finished my little thing about diagnosis. Anyway, so when you die, remember we talked about. I'm sorry, I skip all over the place. You got to really hang on tight. But you name everything, you give it existence. Okay. So when they say, when you go into and you know the act of sorcery, the act of black magic always has a ritual. It's a ritual. You've got certain, you're wearing the long robes, and we've got candles, and you drew an upside down pentagon or whatever it is you got, or you got six-sided star or whatever it is, and then they say a spell. They pronounce words, and they produce sorcery and black magic. Well, that's exactly happens when you go in the House of Horrors and you go to one of the witches' offices, and they let you go into the door, and they say, the doctor will see you now, sir. It's like saying, Dracula will see you now, sir. So you go into the office, and there he is, or she, and they're sitting there in this desk with a white coat. And that's the moment that you turn around and you run, Forrest, run, get out of there. Because what they're going to do is go, you are, it's done. It's done. Everything you ever heard about that word will come crashing into you on a subconscious level. And you're going to be wiped out psychologically. You will have just been knocked in the back of your knees psychologically. Which means what? Psychoneuroimmunology means that your immune system has been knocked out. It did it. And now you're in a state where you'll do anything. Cut this off? Okay, yeah, cut that off. Okay, then poison me? Yeah, that radiate me? Okay. You'll agree to things that you would never agree to in your right mind. Standard of scare. Anyway. So, going back to the stool sample, you're not going to find it. But so how do you know if your child has it, has any parasites? your child has been exposed. Whether or not they've colonized or not could be uncertain, depending on the age and the exposure and all that. But by the they're going to, especially with today's food, or what they call food, the things that children are eating and drinking, and I think what is it, by the age 2 years old now, I think there are 29 shots that children are given. These shots are meant to I feel it's really hard not to be able to talk straight. So I'm trying to figure out how to say it. You know what those shots are. Okay, so I'm not going to go any further. Up to the age of 29. When I was young, there were none. What did we do? We took up, it was an ice sugar cube with for polio. Well, I was lucky. So, but of course, it had SV40 in it, which produces CFCs. But anyway, so children are eating non-food and they're being injected and all that sort of thing. So yeah, so your child hopefully you're feeding the children right, and there was a question right there, real quickly. Let me just answer how to treat ulcerative colitis. Really, you got to do a thorough cleanse fast. But the other main thing is probiotics. Okay, and there have been some amazing studies, research showing that fecal transplants can eliminate ulcerative colitis. Right? Yeah, it's just by changing the microflora inside of the. That's where most of our problems are. Between that and and of course all the heavy metal that we are exposed to, all the poisons we're exposed to when we don't eat organic food, all those things directly affect our microbiome. Now, and then of course organic food is more expensive, and now here we're really in trouble. We're really in trouble because now even organic, what's called organic, what has been allowed under the umbrella of organic is this new thing called Apeel, APEEL, which is this substance that's put onto fruit and vegetables, and it's been allowed. They're allowing to call it organic. So now we have to really, we all have to go to farmers or something like that. All right, so, but anyway, all of this causes us to have a dysbiosis, a severe dysbiosis. And listen, anybody out there who gets depressed frequently, and then you find out that if they were to give you an SSRI, which is the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, all that means is that it's a drug that causes your body to keep more serotonin around. Okay, then that depression goes away. So really, what we call depression is really a serotonin deficiency, and 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut by those germs. The germs produce serotonin. The germs produce serotonin. So you gotta get them. You gotta get the good germs. You gotta get a good balance. All right. So, so instead of taking SSRIs, if you're depressed, you can just redo your gut, get the good bacteria up, and you know what'll happen? You'll be making tons of serotonin, and you'll feel good. It's called the feel-good hormones. Okay. So now. Okay, so now does your child have them? Yeah, you still got to treat the child, but you got to know who you got to find. Here's the problem. So we're going to set up a system where we can work on people specifically with parasite problems, not just CFCs, because they're really interrelated, and I can see there's a lot people that want that. So we're figuring out how to do it. We're training a few people, so we'll all be able to take calls and try to do this through consultation. And then the thing will be being able to get the medications, and so we're working on all that wherever you are. So okay, so here's by Luisito. I watched the video of you teaching how to get rid of parasites, but I live in Brazil. Can you explain the usage and medication protocol and how many days I take them? I'm going to see a doctor and I want to do this cleansing. Thank you very much. Here's the problem, Luisito. He won't do it anyway. So unless, you know, so anyway, the the protocol I've mentioned it multiple times is other than the parasites that live on our body, which are called ectoparasites, um, there's worms and protozoa. Protozoa are single cell organisms, like amoeba. If you ever had yeah, amoeba, toxoplasmosis. I mean, there's many single cell organisms. Um, so the medication, one are anti-helminth. They get rid of the worms, and this is, what are they? Ivermectin. Then you want at least one of the benzimidazole, so fenbendazole, mebendazole, and then you want praziquantel is really great for the flukes, gets the flukes really good, and then you can even use niclosamide, and then you can use something for the protozoa like tinidazole, metronidazole, Alinea, which is nitazoxanide, and you're doing all that, and then you're going to use the anti-fungals, because funguses and when you have a dysbiosis, in other words, and also parasites they increase the dysbiosis, they make it worse. So parasites make it worse. So they cause a dysbiosis because it's to their advantage to get rid of these guys and to let these guys. So it's to their advantage. So they do that. And so you need to restore that. Right. So now, now the other thing, you guys, please keep in mind that it's not only about killing them. You have to, but it's also about changing your diet, because by eating human food, then you are feeding the healthy bacteria, the ones we want. Because remember, we probably have at least one of every kind of bacteria inside of us. And they're in different ratios. And we have a lot of this one, and those ratios and proportions get changed by what? By the food that's available for them. So somebody on a fast food diet is going to have a specific proportion of microorganisms in their body that survive. And if they change their diet, then they're going to get a different group, right? So if you want to raise the healthy ones that are going to keep you healthy, and also keep parasites away, keep CFCs away, things like that, then you want to eat human food. And I'm not going to get into why right now, because if you don't know, it's sad, but you got to know, it's plants. Sorry. I know that hurts. That hurts. Right? That hurts a lot. I don't want to eat plants, right? I know, because there's a lot of you. Listen, there's a lot of corpse eaters out there. I get it. There's this corpse addiction. We have how do we call corpse addiction? Well, what is today? Oh, it's October 1st. So coming up is at the end of the month is something called Halloween. Now in Halloween we have all kinds of fun stuff like goblins and ghouls, right? Well, ghoul. Guess what a ghoul is? What's one definition of a ghoul? One who devours dead bodies. There you go. So anybody wants to go to Ghouls Anonymous, we're going to have, we should start a 12-step program. Gotta eat that corpse. Love those corpses. Can't tell you what happens to me when I eat a corpse. So anyway, people that consume a lot of corpse will get a different kind of proportion of, they're going to get the kinds of microorganisms that love corpses. So we eat plants. Oh, by the way, anybody ever hear that expression, as sick as a dog? Yeah, I think so. And has anybody ever heard that expression, as healthy as a horse? Well, let's think. What do dogs eat? What do horses eat? Just throwing that out there. I know I get a lot of people get really mad at me. Yeah, I agree. Ghouls Anonymous. There we go. GA. We're gonna have a GA club. We'll do a 12-step program. Remember, we all need the 12-step program. It's just a way to like get straight with yourself, and the people that you care about in your life. Um, but you need something to be powerless over. So the alcoholics say, I realized I was powerless over alcohol. The drug people that like drugs are saying, I realized I was powerless over this, whatever this. Um, and and then Overeaters Anonymous, where they're powerless over overeating, and they have Gamblers Anonymous, and we're gonna have Ghouls Anonymous. And I'm gonna take it even one step further. Once we get past the ghoul thing, if you can get past the ghouls, I mean, if you can finally put down the ghoul, put down the corpse. When you can finally put the corpse down, then we have to get to a thing where we call it um, ah, what's that word? A Maillard. Maillard is anonymous. Maillard are these chemicals that are produced when you heat food up to a certain temperature, and it's when a reducing sugar, gets combined with an amino acid, and it produces what are called Maillard chemicals. Well, it's those Maillard chemicals that make food that has been cooked taste the way it tastes. It's the brown on toast. It's the you bake bread, and it's the smell of coffee in the morning. So it's the fragrances, odors, and tastes of cooked food that we're addicted to, and it's probably the most powerful addiction on earth. Much more than cigarettes, much more than heroin or cocaine, much more than alcohol, because everyone's got to eat. Except I knew one alcoholic, who was an amazing certified public accountant, CPA, amazing. But and you wanted to do your taxes, we had to get there before noon, because otherwise. And he told me, I never drink on an empty stomach. So anyway, whatever that means, a full stomach. I never drink on a full stomach. So in other words, he just drank, and actually that's what saved him. He actually lived longer than he would have because he drank. I mean, he got completely smashed every day, completely. But he lived longer because he didn't eat much, hardly ate. He actually lived longer. If he had been an eater and a drinker, anyway. So, anyway, to Luisito, what I'm saying here about it is that if you can find a doctor who's going to give it to you. Now, the best way to test, I know you all want to test, you think about testing, and unfortunately, in the Western world, we don't really have any tools other than, if you find it in the stool, you can test for it. Now, what we do is we take the stool and we analyze it for DNA, and then we can find all that. So that's a little bit better. But as I said, they don't even get to the stool. They're embedded in the ovarian wall. They're embedded in the uterine wall. They're embedded in the spleen, in the liver, the lungs, the brain, skin, lymph node. They're just, the colon, small intestine, testes. Yeah, they're even vaginal parasites. Yeah, I mean yeah, it's crazy, but women have had worms coming out. So but anyway, so the thing is, the best way is to use some energy mechanisms to determine it, and those deal with our meridian systems. And there's something called acupuncture meridian assessment. Uh, there is Yeah, I'm electrodermal screening. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the different ways, but and even muscle testing, they can tell if energy is, if the energy in a specific, um, um, it's almost like, your bedroom light and your bathroom light and the kitchen light go out, and you put it on you put a fuse into that, um, and it's back on. So that's the same thing it is. And all of our meridians go through. They're like currents now. They go through the teeth, right? So each tooth is connected to that and stuff. So you can test for that, and that's the best way to get it, because all the equipment that we can use in the Western world is going to leave about 10 to 15% that we don't know. that you can only pick up by energy. Um, yeah. So I said, okay, yeah. So here, your question. This is okay. So I'm sorry. So let me. I keep reading two people. Let me finish with Luisito. So basically, you've got to have to take the anti-fungals as well, because even when remember the dysbiosis we have, so it means the funguses, which usually only are about 10% of our GI, are going to become more, and then we say, oh, I have candida, or something like that. Like when women get yeast infections, it's not that they get the yeast go down to being the right proportion, because you need yeast in there. Remember, funguses, yeast are the undertakers of the world. They take dead matter and they recycle it and make it ready to be used for soil, etc., for new life. So they're very important. They're not even in the food chain, actually. So there's a certain part in our gut, in the vaginal canal, nasal passage, oral. There's a certain amount of them there. They're necessary. So it's not to get rid of them. However, they become overgrown and all that. So when you're doing these antiparasitics, you've got to also do the antifungals, right? And so that would be fluconazole, that would be nystatin, that would be itraconazole. Those are the main ones. All right, so anyway, Rhonda, this should answer the question what you're asking here. Do I know any doctors who do parasite cleansing? The only one I know really is Dr. Simon Yu in St. Louis, and he is, but he's only one guy. Um, right. You got to. Okay, listen, Rhonda. If you're getting vomiting, diarrhea, and headaches, uh, you might not be on the right combination for you. So, and the right dosing for you. That's why it's really important not to take what I say as specifically like this is what we're going to do. This is what you need to do. This is just in general. We do a combination of these different antifungal. I mean, helminths, anti-protozoals. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's try to go past this because we can. It's not. Um, Right, and the reason we do 3 weeks on and 1 week off is several, or you can do 4 weeks on and 1 week off. The reason you do that is because remember, there's hatching. The eggs need to hatch, and you want that. Another one, you want to give your liver a break because it is hard on the liver, but the liver comes back, it bounces back. Unless you've got already have. So that's why you can't just do this. You have to have somebody who's like a doctor who knows what they're doing. There is the hardest thing to find. What medical testing? Yeah, I think I kind of addressed that, Rhonda, about the medical testing. It's really hard. There is no medical testing. I would say go to, if you can make an appointment, Dr. Simon Yu in St. Louis. Now, a question from David on herbs on killing parasites. Yeah, so herbs. The problem with herbs is they're not, you can't get the large enough doses and penetrate deeply enough. Um, it's the one time that I say, you're better off to try and get some of these pills, because these guys are, they're like serious about staying inside of there. Um, okay, and Rhonda was so Rhonda is talking about the ivermectin, which she's taking 12 milligrams 3 times a day. Fenbendazole 222 milligrams 3 times a day. The praziquantel 600 milligrams 3 times a day. 1 year sequence of 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Confused about the other ones. So the fluconazole, the nystatin, tinidazole. Tinidazole is an protozoal. So it gets, it gets, entamoeba. Entamoeba is a pretty common parasite. There's a parasite in women. Men have it, but they don't know it, and they give it to women, and women get it because they know it because they get a fishy odor. That's a parasite. It's killed with tinidazole or metronidazole. So there's a lot of them, and those also can cause, both of those can cause in the woman cervical CFCs and in the men prostate CFCs. So you do want to get rid of them also, because if they stay around too long on not being eliminated, they'll cause CFCs, which we don't want. And again, the testing would be, acupuncture meridian assessment, or anybody who's really good with muscle testing. Um, Electrodermal screening. All right, so now let's go. Here's another one. I've been on a plant-based whole food diet since my lung surgery in 2021. This is by Tatiana. Actively juicing and eating salads. Then I started having pain in my kidneys. Took an ultrasound which showed 3 stones in my left and one in my right kidney. Oxalates from spinach celery. Now I'm on Chanca Pedra and drink even more water than before. How can we protect ourselves from having too many oxalate new stones? Well, actually, that's a really great question, and I'm going to devote a whole video to this. I wrote a paper as a well, in the Townsend. I mentioned this before in the Townsend letter in January, I think, of 2015. There was a doctor, a PhD, who wrote something about the dangers of smoothies. And so I wrote a rebuttal to that, and it was published in the Townsend letter in December of 2015. And I called the green smoothie bliss. And anyway, so in there I talk about a lot of it. But basically, there were some interesting studies on oxalates, and they looked at this and they said, well, first of all, they found out that they were looking at the dietary pattern of all these people that are on oxalates, right? And what they concluded was the endogenous, in other words, your body's production of the organic acids, and it's not as much as the body's organic production of them, and also the acidic, or the foods that you eat, which they call acetogenic diet, making acid. They were independent of each other, so both were equally as important. And because it's known that the low pH, the high acid content of the urinary system, can result in that. And so there was an interesting study with vitamin C, looking at, because that's another concern with people that are taking IV vitamin C. They worry about oxalates, because what happens, when glucose becomes ascorbate, which goes to ascorbyl, and then goes to dehydroascorbate, and then goes to oxalate. So it's metabolized that way. And so if you get vitamin C, you're going to get oxalate stones. Well, no. They found out that even in people that make oxalate stones a lot, if they gave them magnesium oxide and vitamin B6, they didn't make them. And then the other thing, they had to be well hydrated. So it turns out that if the urinary system has high acid, which is low pH, and is dehydrated, you're going to make them. And if you're not, if you're well hydrated, and you get the pH alkaline, it's not going to happen. Okay, so, and the low pH, which is high acid in the urinary system, what they found in this study can be due to the consumption of animal protein causes high intake, increase in endogenous production, and decreased urinary ammonia, right? So what can do all that? Insulin resistance and obesity can do that, right? They can do that, all right? And it was found that actually the vegetarians had less calcium oxalate stones than the animal eaters, all right? And so why? Because think about it. Anything that's green is going to have magnesium, because magnesium is sitting in the center of every chlorophyll molecule. And green is because, why is a plant green? Because of chlorophyll. Okay. Now, and I told you a moment ago that magnesium oxide and pyridoxine, or vitamin B6, would prevent the stones from forming. Well, that's what you get when you're eating a plant-based diet. Now, we've had Oasis of Healing open 19 years now, and people drink several liters a day of green juice, which is cucumber, celery, spinach, and kale, lemon, and maybe some apple. The spinach and kale, big time oxalates, but not one oxalate. 19 years, not one oxalate stuff. Me, not one, ever. Everybody that worked in my office staff, never. Why? How well hydrated. And it turns out that the oxalates and the calcium in right proportions actually stimulate the gut to chelate. And it's just it's so complicated you can't begin to understand it. But so what has been found that's in the fruits and vegetables are things that are what they call lithogenic inhibitors. Science is ridiculous. Litho meaning stone, genic meaning produce, inhibitors such as magnesium citrate and high alkaline potassium. These are in plants. And when it's interesting when they look at people that have an omnivorous diet, they're not omnivores, but they have a diet, and they switch to a vegetarian diet, and they look at the urine, what's coming out in the urine, they start to see higher excretion of potassium, magnesium citrate, and a decreased excretion of calcium, right? And so it decreased the calcium, so the calcium oxalate there wasn't as much, they couldn't get together. Because yes, indeed, about 80% of all kidney stones are calcium oxalate. So one of the recommendations was a normal calcium, low salt animal and low animal protein diet has proven to be better than telling someone to go on a calcium restricted diet. Anyway, it's very interesting. The truth is always more interesting than fiction. So what I have to say to you, Tatiana, is you need to drink a lot of fluids, yes. You need to go back to eating healthy. Drink a lot of fluids and eat a wide variety of vegetables and do your juicing and all that. And you got to stay well hydrated. Okay. And if you want to take magnesium oxide or any other kind of magnesium and vitamin B complex so you can get your B6, you can do those as well. Yeah. All right. So now, in detoxing, smoothies are the rave. Question: How much does blending damage the fruits and vegetable nutrients because of the high oxidation and metal crushing? Well, that's a very good a good point. And it really is not necessarily damage the crushing and all that. It's not going to necessarily damage the molecular structure of these small molecules, but I mean, it could here and there, but not rapidly. But again, when you're exposing everything, when you crush it up, there's now much more surface area to be exposed to oxygen, and you can get oxidation. Yeah, so that that can happen, and yeah, that does happen. And so you use them for different things. You're not going to make your entire diet smoothies and green juice. You're going to do them for a specific reason. And let me tell you about smoothies. The way I look at smoothies. Smoothies. Okay, so you're going to get all the plant material you need because you're going to be eating a healthy plant-based diet. So you're going to get all the plant material you need in that. You're going to get your protein, your amino acid, which become protein needs, and your fatty acid needs met by seeds and nuts. And you can make a chia porridge, and then you're going to do a flaxseed smoothie. Now, in the smoothies are really vehicles for delivering high levels of healthy fat to a person. They're not to drink. You're not doing it to get vegetables. When you do the juicing and you remove all the fiber and you're just getting all the phytonutrients, all the amino acids, all the carbohydrates, all the chelated minerals, you're getting all the phytonutrients, all the micronutrients and all that. The only thing you're not getting from juice is fiber and fat, which you'll get later. But you're doing that. So you have to understand that every aspect of the eating has a different function. So the juicing is just to give you lots of high nutrient fluid to clean out the body, clean out all the stuff from the interstitial fluid. That's what its purpose is. And then drinking it every day, once you're past the juice feast, you're just drinking it every day to keep yourself hydrated and getting like it's like a vitamin, because what you get in 1 liter of juice is an armful of vegetables, so you're getting high nutrient. It's really good. And then you're going to get your complete protein from chia seed. Complete. Don't need to eat a corpse at all. Um, Complete protein from chia, and you'll make chia porridge. And then you're going to get phytonutrients that do magical things, like in the flax, and that downregulate estrogen receptor alpha, which you find in lots of CFCs, and binds to the beta, which shrinks these things. And we're not just talking about breast, and we're not just talking about ovarian and uterine. We're also talking about prostate, bladder, prostate, stomach, pancreas, and colon. Yeah. So, yeah. Uh, but yeah, so the smoothie really is not so much doing uh, to get to get the plant material into you. It's really more important to do so I would say a smoothie is 3 tablespoons of flaxseed ground up, put into a nut milk. You can add a few vegetables if you want, and some berries or something, just so you can get the fat. Oh, okay. So someone here said this is Johnny. Johnny said went to pancure.com. It's Panacure, Panacur, Panacur. And then for niclosamide, you can go to niclosam.com. But the problem is that once we all know this, I'm always afraid they're going to start messing with us, Because remember, the goal of them is not our health, but rather our demise. Hard as it may be for you maybe to believe that, and most of you should no longer have the hard time believing that. Okay, here's Mervat. Is food grade diatomaceous earth reliable for getting rid of parasites? No, as I said, they're not just and they're not going to pull them out of the lungs, ovaries, liver. So it's just like, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Now, okay, let's go over here. Okay, real question from Stacy here, real quickly. I'm 34. I have PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. I am high testosterone, estrogen dominant, low progesterone, and some insulin resistance, considering bioidentical hormone replacement after test for thyroid, cortisol, etc. What is your thoughts on this? I've tried adaptogen, herbs, and nutraceuticals, but I can tell my hormone and metabolism is not balanced. Okay, yeah, well, and I hear you, all the stuff that happens. Well, one of the things that we pretty much know about PCOS now is it really fundamentally comes down to insulin resistant glucose, the insulin glucose dynamic, fundamentally there. And that, so we've got to deal with that. And then the biological or biologically identical hormone rebalancing is really important. So if you're a young 34-year-old woman, so we just got to get your rebalancing. But I would, if I were working with you, I would find out are you still menstruating? Are you, so there's a lot of things we want to know. So your situation specifically should be. I mean, I can. How can you? I guess you could. Well, God, I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to make it real for you. So you got to have someone that's going to work with you. Well, here's the thing: I don't know where you live, but if you could find someone that's like a nurse practitioner or some sort of functional doctor that would be willing to collaborate with me, I'll be happy to do that. Happy to do that. But anyway, you got to work on this. So I would do a good, thorough, healthy cleanse. I would go on. I'd do maybe then a water fast for a week, 10 days after you did a 2 or 3 week um, juice cleanse. Not a lot of sugar. Remember, not a lot of uh, apples. Mostly the spinach, spinach, kale, celery, cucumber, like that. And you got to clean out. And then you're going to eat really. If you eat, I tell you, just eat uncooked foods. Eat delicious, wonderful salads, and learn how. Come over. I really wish we could open up everything we do, but you got to get a good raw food, real food. I call it real food. Um, Preparation book, prep book, um, and we have one online. It's called Stop Making Cancer. You can get that one, but there are other ones too. You can go online and you can get on videos on how to make delicious, healthy food because it's got to taste good. You've got to like it. Anyway, if you're eating that way, your insulin and glucose dynamic will come back into balance. You won't have the underlying condition that supports PCOS, right? And then you got to do and go. We got to get your. You can do your saliva test. I like urine tests better, urine metabolites, so you can see what's happening with those um, um, parent hormones that are being metabolized because it's going to tell you about what's going on. But remember, broccoli, sprouts, put them in your thing. You want to upregulate phase 2 detoxification so that you can metabolize estrogens better. You want to clean your colon out. You want to do a lot of things like that and work with biologically identical hormones. So it's not just that. If dealing with CFC, should fruit intake be limited? Yes, yes. Just eat the low glycemic. Eat the berries, the green apples, the green kiwis, not the yellow kiwis. You can eat some oranges that are low glycemic. You can eat lemons, grapefruit, um, and decaf or organic coffee. If you have it black, it doesn't have to be decaf. Red wine, yeah, no sulfites added or organic. Don't drink a lot. Just you know, don't ever drink more than a glass. Um, and But all the other fruit you got to be careful of. All right, so I can see everyone. I got a lot of questions here. I got so many questions. I've got wow. Let me see. What time we got? 6:41. What did I start? Oh wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of questions. I'm trying to get. Am I doomed? I have a non. This is Edith. I have a non-removable metal rod in my tibia and metal plates and screws in my fibula and ankle in my right leg. How can I mitigate any consequences of having? Yeah. Isn't it crazy what they do to us? But you had, in order to fix, that's a lot of times orthopedic surgery. You got to do all those things to make your, function, to have function. Um, so, okay, so you're right. It's mostly in your fibula, ankle, and tibia. So your tibia. Okay, so these are her right. She's talking about her right leg, the big, large bone, and then the smaller bones down there. So what you've got to do then is really, fortunately, it's in the leg. So that means you've still got all the energy up the rest of your body. As long as you don't have metals in your mouth, you don't have any up here. So all of your vital organs and all that are not going to get, affected. But, there is some of that there. So what you've got to do is eat really, really healthy, do some cleansing, like I was saying, and eat nothing but healthy food. And, unfortunately, you can't take the metals out. So yeah, but what I'm saying is the good news is it's your leg, which is below. So everything above, which means all your pelvic organs, your all that, you can still have flow. The meridians can still be working. The energy can flow, and you can be healthy and all that, and you keep your colon clean. So it's not as bad as it sounds. Uh, it's just that you have you have disrupted energy flow down to your foot. So it's really your foot that you're going to have to use, and you could work with. Um, Dr. Jerry Tennant has what's he call it? It's like a zapper. It's almost like a Hulda Clark zapper, but it's a little more sophisticated. I forget what he calls it. But number one, you got to do a cleanse, get yourself really healthy, do all that stuff. Everything we talk about, meditation, everything, you got to do that. And then we've got to use stuff for your foot because your foot is the one that's not going to, your foot and your leg. But you got to keep, Beamer is a really good, Beamer is an EMF that just opens up the small vessels of our body. The arterioles, and the that whole system that feeds our capillaries, which goes to our organs. And the Beamer opens it up. It doesn't do anything else, but it opens those up, which is really really important, and not just in your leg, but your whole body. Um, okay. Okay, so Susie. Oh, by the way, you guys, there's a big thing. I'm sure you've all heard about something that's coming on October 4th. And the question, here's the thing. my my sense of things is that when everyone knows about a specific date, uh, that the worst thing is probably not going to happen on that date. Not that it's not going to happen 3 days later or 2 days later, or a week later, but that's just my thinking. But the whole idea that there's going to be the FEMA is going to do an emergency broadcast. It's going to go through all of your. It was at 2:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, so it's kind of a strange number time, 2:22 p.m. But and we don't know what that is, but we know there's a lot of really smart people talking about other things that could be happening. Um, so I don't know what's going to happen and when, you know, and that's part of the whole thing is to keep us not knowing. So usually, if the majority of us think something's going to happen on a specific date, it doesn't. It'll happen another time. So I don't know what to say about that. What should we do? Not be near, even if you're not near devices, if you're near towers, you know, these EMF towers. So, I can't use all the words I want to, but I think you all know what I'm saying. You can't be near them all. All right. So now we're talking about, I have, okay, so I have had HER2 positive DCIS, microinvasion, breast, CFCs for 2 years now. No treatment at all. Oncologist said, why put toxic chemicals in you for something so small? That's great. Wow. I've been seeing a drugless doctor who has given me supplements for things that I'm deficient in. Good. But eat the food is better, always better than the supplement if you can eat food. A few of the supplements contain glutamic acid. Is that safe to take with having a zero point 0.7 fermenting cell? Also, where do I get ivermectin for parasites? Do I need to get it from a doctor? So, yeah, you need a whole program. But yeah, ivermectin and fenbendazole you can get on the line. Fenbendazole you can get online. Fenbendazole. Uh, Panacure.com. And then I'm really happy to hear your oncologist said that. That's really cool. Ivermectin you can get
I think you can get it online through India. It's got some good products. It's not so. Uh, or you and to get all the parasites, and then you can go, yeah, you can go online at the nightclosesam.com. But you need to do cleansing and eating and all that sort of thing. So you can call my an Oasis of Healing, and we can set up a consult and work through this if you'd like, and really give you some detailed, specific advice for you. Okay, here's from Mara. For someone with breast CFCs, what, if any, value is DNA testing to understand one's unique nutritional needs? Yeah, it's not important. We are all human. We all, I mean, we're the same. We're the same. We might metabolize things here and there, but just like your nutritional needs are the same as mine, and we could determine, we could do nutritional analysis and look at your hair and look at other things and figure out what micronutrients you might have be low in and stuff like that. And then we could try to find them in supplement form, or we could just say drink about a liter or two of green juice a day with organic. Eat all these whole foods, eat them uncooked. Get all your nutrient from eating nutrients. Now, do we need to take a few other things? Yes, especially if you've got some CFCs going on. And so, you want to take some extra, maybe some extra selenium, or eat a lot of Brazil nut milk, but a lot of selenium, because Brazil nut milk will have selenomethionine, where the selenium is actually chelated to an amino acid called methionine, um, and zinc, manganese, magnesium. But you're going to get magnesium if you're drinking lots of green juice. So, um, and you want to get high fat because you want to be able to develop a situation where the membranes of your cell are so strong that they can hold in a voltage of 70 millivolts so that you can completely heal. And the 70 millivolts is the same as, it correlates with a high alkalinity, and high antioxidant, because we're talking about electrons. Voltage is electrons. And so, um, yeah. So here's Yola with my dear mom has stage 3 advanced CFCs in the sigmoid colon, measuring 11 by 12 by 3. The raw fruit and vegetable. She tried raw fruit and vegetable diet for still there. Hemoglobin went down to 16. Hemoglobin didn't go to 6.9. Or maybe you're from England. Any chance of curing? They want to do chemo in 2 weeks. Her situation is very complicated. You'd have to have an actual consult with me, because I can't. Yeah, but there's there a chance of doing it without high dose chemotherapy? Yes, yes. Now, I don't know what she was eating, how she was eating the fruits and veggies. I don't know how much fruit. I don't know what she was doing, so I don't, not really sure. Her hemoglobin went down, not because of that, not because of diet. You could drink blood, your hemoglobin is going to go down when you have this kind of condition. So get in touch with me, or call an Oasis of Healing, or drlodi.com, make an appointment. But it's better Oasis of Healing right now. Right now, better an Oasis of Healing. Call them and make an appointment. So we've got bladder. Michael, is there any advice you have for muscle invasion of bladder CFCs? I have followed a natural protocol and have been successful. Doctor stopped my vitamin C because of slight elevation in kidney levels. So your doctor's not very smart. Tumor seemed to get worse at that point. Of course, I'm 75 years old, diagnosed at 72. Blood and urine persist, so I had to try some IMRT radiation for the tumor. Also had 2 kidney stents as well as temporary nephrostomy. Any advice would be appreciated. Well, you don't, if your creatinine went up, not because of vitamin C. And as I said, you said earlier, magnesium oxide and pyridoxine, which is vitamin B6, are real good. But eating a healthy green diet is going to, help because the only the reason your kidney levels, you probably mean creatinine, went up would go up is if um, if you had, I mean, if you had stones that blocked and you wound up getting swollen kidneys and they weren't working, then that would make it go up. But that's fair, you'd have a lot of pain for that. You would know for sure. So that's probably not it because I didn't hear the word pain in there. Um, so anyway, yeah, you don't need listen, and you had temporary nephrostomy. So I'm wondering what happened there. It's because the bladder that there's just way too much, Michael, that I don't know about your situation that I have to know about to give you any you know you know actionable advice, something you could do. So you could give out sent an oasis of healing.com, and you could call there and make an appointment. We can talk and we can figure out if what you're doing and all that. All right. Oh wow. Okay. So Paulina, how do we prevent liver CFCs? My dad was diagnosed with cirrhosis, and he is not yellow, but he can't eat much, and his stomach is huge. He has accumulated ammonia in his body. Can this be parasites? Okay. Cirrhosis can be reversed. You've got to look up Dr. Bert Berkson in New Mexico. Dr. Bert Berkson in New Mexico. He's where I learned it from. But you use alpha lipoic acid. Um, and there's a whole combination we use now with alpha lipoic acid and lower doses of vitamin C, and you can use phosphatidylcholine and stuff like that. But Bert just uses, the ALA and some of the B. You got to use B vitamins with it. But we can reverse cirrhosis, yeah. And if his stomach's big, he's not ammonia. The reason the ammonia builds up is because one of the things that the liver does is part of the system for getting rid of ammonia. So it's going to build up. So what they use is something. I'm I'm sure you're on it, right? Um, they've given you something, right? They've given you some medicine that makes his bowels move, and basically it grabs the ammonia and gets it out, so you don't get it into your blood. Um, so, but I he is doing it. Yeah, yeah, I hear you. So he's really, really sick. Well, there's the thing. Cirrhosis can be fixed. All right, can be fixed. Now, are parasites involved? Sure, parasites could absolutely be involved. Um, but I don't, I got to ask you, before he got cirrhosis, did he have hepatitis B or C, or was he an alcoholic? Because those are usually the main causes. The only other one would be chemicals like, carbon tetrachloride and stuff like that. But yeah, but I mean, uh, parasites do that too. So the problem is putting him on a parasite cleanse right now. Like, would have to be extremely low doses because he doesn't have the liver to break down the medicines. So, and then even herbs, you have to find out herbs that don't require liver involvement to get them out of the body. And so it have to be done very carefully. So I would say right now, work on the cirrhosis. Let's get that reversed to some degree, and then we can start dealing with other things. Because with the cirrhosis, if there's, I don't know what his liver function tests are, how low or how high they are. I mean, I don't know, because in cirrhosis, usually, you've got, usually high liver enzymes. And then when they start to go down, that's because the cirrhosis is becoming extensive, and there are really not any longer many functional liver cells. And so the liver goes down not because it's getting better, but because of that's happening. So I'm not sure his condition. So, Paulina, yeah, I'd have to really talk with you and find out. But as I said, we can't do a lot of parasitic cleanses right now because it requires liver to break it down. So I would need to speak with you, and but deal with the cirrhosis first, okay? All right, everyone. Listen, thank you very much. Sawadee kap, namaste, namaskar, aloha, and I will see you next week. Thank you for being here. Um, and